Hey everybody, welcome back to One Rusty Pilot. Today we are flying November 5145 Kilo on my very first solo in 9 years. So I've never flown this plane, new avionics, heading up to Kerrville, coming back. A little bit nervous to be honest, got to fill it up with gas because it's pretty much empty. We'll see how it goes. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I apologize. I did not get my cable hooked into the GoPro well, so you're not going to hear any of the audio, the cockpit audio, or our narration along the way. So we're just going to skip forward. So basically on this trip, we're headed up to Kerrville, do some patterns. I'm in the run-up area. I just checked all my flight controls. I skipped all the taxiing and a pre-flight where I was talking about where I was still getting used to the electronics. And what you're going to see here is I'm actually going to do the run-up. I'm going to the magneto check. And I'm going to do it twice because the left magneto, when I went off the magneto back to both, it sounded like the engine just ran a little rough, like it just hiccuped just a tad. So I decided to run it twice. The second time it sounded fine, so I decided it was good to go. And I didn't have any problems with the engine the entire flight. So then you're going to see me take the runway, and we're going to start to back taxi because I'm taking off for runway 35. What's interesting is shortly after this, you're going to hear audio of people coming in to land 17 at Boerne Stage Airfield, which is the preferred runway, landing 17. And then, but when I looked at the windsock, and AWOS was calling wind 040 at 6. So the windsock clearly showed a headwind on runway 35, but everybody else took off runway 17 and landed runway 17. So I would prefer to take off with a headwind. But I guess they can do what they want to. It's their plane. So it's a little bit of back taxi, plenty of runway room. It's just a little narrower runway. Can't say that word. And I'm still getting used to taxiing this thing. So we'll slung it a little wide. Nothing terrible. Takeoff, I lifted off probably about 10 knots late. The takeoff trim in this plane, the elevator takeoff trim, it's a fairly old plane, and you really couldn't tell exactly where the takeoff trim button was. So my guess is it was trimmed for about 10 knots faster than the rotation speed. So I got off the ground a little bit later than I normally. On the way out to Kerrville, it didn't take long, maybe about 15 minutes. The one obstacle that's out there's about a 3,000 foot tower, but I was flying at 4,500 and I was up at altitude above that tower plenty of time before it got there, and so it was a really nice day. So let's fast forward to the first pattern at Kerrville. So first pattern, really it was not a busy pattern at all. Just flew up to Kerrville, landing on runway 12. Winds were calling about a 4 to 5 knot crosswind. Windsock was showing straight down the runway. The overall trend for the day was I was fast on base, fast on final, and slow to really get established on a nice, stable glide slope where my pitch is set, my power is set, and I'm on speed. That was evidenced by every time I rolled out, the VASIs were showing me high. And then I would get about a half-mile final, and I would get on. So it looks like a pretty stable approach, but if you could look at the airspeed, I'm about 10 knots fast still at this point. And I'm flying this with 20-degree flaps. prepare for an ugly landing. Yep, that was an ugly landing, ladies and gentlemen. So I flared it a little high, trying not to PIO it, and I just dropped it in for probably a foot or two above the runway. So let's go on to the second pattern and see if that one's any better. As you can see, I still rolled out a little high and still a little fast, but I catch it up to my desired 70 knots approach a little sooner. Okay, now I'm on speed. So there you go, better landing. As I always used to teach my students, a stabilized approach leads to a fairly good landing in most cases. I did get a little crosswind gust there that you might have noticed. I'm not sure where that came from. It was kind of the only one I experienced all day, but once again, it wasn't too bad. Now on the third landing, I was really trying to stick to my speeds, and as you can see, I rolled out. I remember this one only being 5 knots fast, and I rolled out on glide slope. So you can tell the picture's a little different. It looks like I'm definitely not high, not drug in, but I'm on the glide slope I want to be. I think I start to get drug in a little bit at the end, so you're going to see me add just a little bit of power. Not too shabby. But on this one, if you can see my hand, I pushed the throttle up, but my thumb did not push the carb heat in. So if you listen to the engine on as I was taking off again, it was just not quite producing as much power. I noticed it about the departure end, pushed the carb heat in, and sure enough, got that extra power back and it started to fly just like it normally would. Once again, rolled out on a good glide slope. Notice my speed on this one still about 5 knots fast, which is not too bad, but I really want to be on my speeds. I catch on speed about right there, about right here. Still a little late to pull power once landing is assured. Decent landing. So first one was pretty bad, second one, and they just slowly got better after that. So now I've kind of had enough fun. The pattern's actually just starting to get not a little busy, but you got a guy kind of coming in from the west, going to overfly the field at 4,500 feet to enter the downwind. You got a motor glider who's going to be taking off. There was a person out on about a 5-mile final that I was looking for but couldn't see, and so I decided it was time for me to head back. All right, so while we're en route, I'm still trying to gather that good aircraft control feeling. So I'm going to do a couple steep turns, almost like a clearing turn. I want to practice just control the aircraft, maintaining altitude, rolling out on a desired heading. I've got my GPS set, reverse course. So I know exactly where I am. Honestly, if you're from the San Antonio area, it would not be that hard to get from Kerrville to Boerne Stage. You pick up I-10 just to the east of the Kerrville airport, and you follow it all the way down to Boerne Stage. So pretty simple. So I do a 60-degree bank turn to the right, then one back to the left. And I'm going to be honest here, because I'm honest in all my stuff. I was trying to roll out on a heading of 120, and I undershot the first rollout by about 5 degrees, and the second roll to the left, I overshot by about 5 degrees. And on this first one, my 60 degrees bank turned to 45 about halfway through. Alright, so now we're back at Boerne Stage Airfield. Putting my hands up there to make sure it's trimmed out, show you that the aircraft is trimmed. Going to be landing on 17 because now, after takeoff, the winds have switched and are definitely landing to the south on 17 at Boerne. There's a Cirrus that's also in the pattern, actually flown by my instructor, that does a go-around. And there's someone that's going to be overflying the field once again at 4,500 to join the downwind. So what I'm doing now, you're going to see Boerne Stage is kind of in the left-hand corner of the cockpit. I position myself to the west, and I'm mirroring on a 45 to the downwind because I do not have sight of the Cirrus. But at this point, they had just called base, so I knew we were clear, and I knew at this point they were the only one in the pattern. Instructor had gone around with his student, and I knew he was probably going to be watching if he recognized my voice. I wanted to make sure I made him proud and did a good landing. On this one, approach to 17, you always get some turbulence there, just from wind shear from the hangars and the road. This one was a little bit more than normal. On this one, I was actually on speed, like I was supposed to be. But once again, I'm landing long. I let my aim point shift, and I did not pull the power soon enough. And so as you see, I'm going to land way long. It was a good landing, right? Smooth touchdown, good landing. But I definitely could have made the first turn off there had I been had a solid aim point, not allow it to shift, and just pulled power sooner. All right, so there I am waving at the instructor and his student in the Cirrus. This one was actually parked in the hangar, so you actually taxi by the cars. It's a little tight fit, to be honest. There's about 5 feet to the left, or 3 or 4 feet to the left with the cars, and just about 5 or 10 feet to the airplane to the right. And that's actually my car right there. So I think I parked and I walked to the plane all of about 15 or 20, maybe 30 feet. So that's a pretty good deal. You can't complain about that. Hear all the narration and the cockpit communications between me and the other aircraft, but I still hope you enjoyed the video. On the taxi back, what I actually did is I actually debriefed the flight. So here's what I'm going to be working on next time. Still working on that sight picture. That first one was pretty rough. I did not like it at all. The second ones, they progressively got better, but I'm still judging that sight picture and my altitude off the ground in the Cessna. The second thing I'm working on, I was fast all day. Sometimes I was 90 miles per hour on base. And so then I'm adjusting at the last second. So, but overall, first solo in 9 years. If you look at it, that's a win. I got myself and the aircraft back on the ground safely without breaking anything. So that's a victory. Thank you for joining One Rusty Pilot. Y'all have a wonderful day.